We're bringing you today's episode from our international conference, and I'm delighted to welcome Tom Herde, CEO of Saville Assessment Asia Pac, who's come all the way from Australia to be here with us. And Tom and I are going to be talking about the gap between organisational strategy and day-to-day talent activity. Tom, welcome.
Thank you, Hannah. It's nice to be here.
Okay, question one, because this is going to be a relatively quick-fire episode. So this gap that we're talking about, where do you see it and how does it play out?
It plays out when, we have many customer conversations during the course of any quarter, and it's always very clear that the stakeholders we're dealing with have organisational objectives to achieve. And that, however, that's not the focus of the conversation. Typically, it's around what their struggles are or actions are within the talent team and what they need to do to fill that role, to hire new talent, to drive growth for the business. It's certainly not taking anything away from heads of talent and the roles they're completing. It's been apparent, are they really truly aware of what the organisational objectives are and what will drive growth across the whole business? So that plays out with, talent would say we have an open role. A natural question we might ask is, how many open roles do you have in any given period? Okay, so what does assessment processes look like? What's your assessment placement ratio? So we have those conversations. But I think I've found that the clients are really quite unprepared for those questions about, well, let's peel it back. Let's just go back a few steps into the organisation. That's what it looks like.
And why do you think that disconnect is there?
I think decisions around strategy are made by different people and different stakeholders. Decisions are made at the beginning of a budget cycle. No one can really predict what a year would look like from a talent perspective, given macro trends, all of the variables. We are humans after all. Sometimes life gets in the way. So I think the average person in talent might agree that, it's not always completely predictable. So at the end of the day, it comes back to a function of their role. They have things to do and get them done.
It's the daily to-do list and the focus on that, and not necessarily always peeling it back, as you say, to organisational strategy.
Yeah, that's right. These conversations are had around, whether it's a board table, I don't know, the virtual board table, but it's made by stakeholders of the business. And I think quite often there is this gap between what is decided as a way forward and best for the organisation and actually how we do to deliver that.
Interesting. And we've been having some discussions today about some of the things that you do to help organisations bridge that gap. So I wondered if you could talk to us a little bit about that.
We try and chunk our conversations down as best we can. And so we think about, if you think about the employee life cycle, the talent life cycle, and where are there issues and problems to be solved with pre-hire, with post-hire? We don't really go in with any particular agenda because we can solve for both. But it's really thinking about, are they having trouble finding people? Is it the attraction piece? Is it around EVP? Is it talent selection and identification? What are your processes that you're going through? So, to a point where we've developed a rubric now within the Asia Pac business that really helps us guide a conversation with our clients. It's really probably a bit of selfishness on our part because we're driving the agenda, but I think clients want to hear that from us and prospective clients.
Yeah.
And, we sort of take them back a few steps to determine, have you thought about this? Have you asked these questions of the leaders in the organisation? This is an open role, but why? If you successfully place somebody in that role, what immediate effect will they be? How long will they be a drain or a cost on the business before they start delivering a return? So I think this approach has made them think about the type of decisions they make.
So talk to me a little bit more about how the framework works exactly.
So we've developed a talent success framework, as I said, that acts as a rubric that helps guides us talk to our customers. And the way it works is that we start from the middle of the circle, the middle of the framework, which really is about the customer. What are their organisational objectives? What impact do these objectives or the actions that load up into the objectives, what do they look like? And then we were able to then segment that down to, well, are we talking about leading or hiring or building talent? Then once we progress the conversation, we move further outside of the circle to, where on the talent life cycle these actions and tactics occur, whether it be from recruitment and selection, development, performance management. And then we start framing some diagnosis questions to get the right answers, depending on where on the employee life cycle their pain points are. And ultimately that moves out to the best solution for them, whether that be a mix of product and consulting from Saville. So it really does act as a point for us to lead with outcomes. What do they want to achieve? Leading to product eventually that would help solve their problems.
And what sort of reaction do they give? Is it kind of light bulb moment?
It's really
stuff?
positive, yeah, it is. I think it's perhaps something they've read or seen somewhere by other commentators in our industry, but typically they don't expect to hear it from us. We are I don't know, it depends whether it's pre or post-hire, but we're seen as an important player and with the outcomes we provide, but we're not the only type of filter or best practice process that would occur on a pre-hire perspective or as part of a post-hire development initiative. So it's quite a different approach.
And on the pre and post-hire, is there a difference in that gap? Like, is it different for talent development, for example? Is there less of a gap? Is it somehow easier to link your day-to-day activity back to organisational outcomes? Or actually, is the gap there regardless of whether you're talking about pre, post-hire?
Yeah, I think it's universal. It sort of transcends across both pre and post-hire because you've got organisations, as I said, who have growth objectives to complete. So we want the right talent coming in from a pre-hire perspective. And post-hire, given the number of headwinds in the market, remote hybrid work practices, the average tenure of workers is reducing. It's making it harder to manage people. So organisations are really doubling down on, perhaps scouring further down in their cohorts of teams to bring them up into, future leadership roles. So again, that conversation around the gaps between strategy and execution, it's apparent there too.
We said this was going to be a relatively quick fire episode. Could you round off with top tips for an organisation who is now sitting, listening to us, talking about this gap and going, that's us right there?
I think it's being prepared to have the conversation with one of the consultants from Saville Assessment to be open with us about what stages they're at in meeting the organisational objectives and what is their anchor. Just reminding them, what are you being held accountable for? So I think the tip is understand what your client has to do in order to meet their objectives and to keep focused on the value we offer and how we can close that gap. I think it's just really asking the question, and being aware of their business.
And might it take, I said that was my last question, it's not, might it just take a little bit longer to get to the answer? Do we maybe need to ask clients or people within organisations to maybe just be a little bit patient, because perhaps you've got to take a few steps back and answer some of those bigger questions before you take 10 steps forward?
Most definitely. It's a good last question. Yes, and I think a lot of our conversations with clients, we pre-position them. We're going to be asking these questions because we need to understand the why and the why now.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's perceived as a point of differentiation, but for us, it just feels right,
Yes, proper partnership.
Yeah, the right way to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tom, thank you so much
My
for joining us.
Thank you, Hannah.
We hope you've enjoyed today's episode of The Deep Dive. If you have, please remember to like and subscribe to stay tuned for all our latest content. If you want more information on any of the topics you've heard today, check out the show notes for case studies, resources and articles. I've been Hannah Mullaney.
See you next time on The Deep Dive.